Today we have something spicy. We're going to talk about how a single Reddit post and a single Reddit thread ruined the best feature for a lot of Smite players in the game that we could have gotten, but didn't because of this very post. The post is a bit lengthy, so I'm gonna sprinkle in some of my own remarks in between, and then we'll talk about the rest afterwards. And it's very, very frustrating for me personally. So this post is by Titanforce Travis, and the post is called Timed Queues, Ranked Only. This post is from 8 months ago and it only had 33 upvotes, so most people, the vast majority of players and even Reddit users, probably never saw it in the first place. Let's talk about queues and matchmaking. We have a problem currently where players are choosing to never get matched. What I mean is that Smite gives tools to the players that, when they use those tools to limit their pools of players to be matched with, they are effectively getting into scenarios where they will never find a match. The players that they might have been matched with get scooped up by the other buckets of players. As it turns out, this is a unique problem to timed queues and the way that we matchmake within them. I could tell you a long story about that, potential fixes and the pros and cons to even considering fixing this issue, but instead we are happy to announce a different resolution. So I'm not quite sure what exactly this way was to not get matched back then. I'm assuming it's somehow linked to not going into crossplay, but at the end of the day, it seems to have been a small portion of the community in the first place. But let's move on. We will be keeping timed queues for ranked modes, as we found the matchmaking in those queues to be really great for a while now. Something that HiRez still states to this day, even though other people say other things about it, but that might be due to the placement system that we have at the moment, and we'll see how that works out after the next split. However, starting with the next release, we will be doing away with timed queues for all of our casual modes. This, by the way, as you may know, never happened. There are several reasons that we are excited about this. Number one, I never liked timed queues, this is personal. Second, with crossplay, our player pools in our queues are really high. This change should get you faster matches with higher quality than before. And note in this context that this was when PS4 was not in crossplay yet, and I think Switch was still starting up, if they're at all. So it was definitely a smaller player pool in crossplay as well, so it should work even better now. And the third reason here, our matchmaking algorithm was built to support those player limiting options within the non-timed queues framework. Those players that have self-selected to play with my feet are likely to get better matches. I have absolutely no idea why he used the phrase play with my feet, and I tried to find out what that references on Google. I guess it's just like play in a really weird limiting way, but don't Google it, you get results that you really don't want to see, unless you're into that. Continuing with the post. That said, let me share with you a conversation that I had with one of our awesome platform programmers. See, I always suspected there was something wrong in our matchmaking within ranked queues. I thought that when we lined everyone up for ranked and assigned matches, that the lowest people didn't get matches were given the highest priority for the next round, resulting in bronze players in my Masters games. This was only a hunch and I had no data to back up my claim. But he obliged and did some research. He went into excruciating detail and I thought, oh, this will be fun to share with Reddit. So here's his response. I looked at, we're just gonna call it X, timed queue handling and saw that there is not an issue with past players getting into a bad match. For timed queues, X handles passed over parties by running 2 matchmaking mini passes. In the first mini pass, he draws anchor parties, the seed parties around which a match is built, only from the older, previously passed parties. But he matches these older anchors with the parties that are near them in the sorted lists. Therefore, we're giving past parties both first dibs on matches next round and also the best quality match available for them. Only after all the previously passed old parties are in a match do we start the second mini pass where we match the remaining new parties. Summary, from what I can tell, it looks like X thought of everything with regards to these timed ranked queues. Number one, he ensures parties that are left over in a previous queue pop are guaranteed a match in the next round, and he gives them the best match possible. So if you ever get this priority match, that would basically be that, the priority match message. 2. Ranked matches are set to use ELO only for matchmaking. I assume this to provide objectively the best quality matches possible for ranked players. 3. However, number 2 might not be very obvious to the players. So you might want to communicate that level is not used for ranked to the community. It might clear up some of the confusion, but will only be a partial solve as we don't publish ELO, the true basis for matchmaking. So that was then. Things are a little bit different now in that regard. So we kind of have seen some changes here already, where the focus on ELO is somewhat more emphasized now. Number 4, since we are using timed queues for Smite Ranked, we also do not take into account total games of this type played this season into the matchmaking, which could lead to some wonkiness at the beginning of the season when players will see qualifiers in the same match as players who have churned out matches over weeks. However, if a player with 1 or 2 games is getting matched with a player with 100 ranked games this season, the ELO still should be close, provided the player population is high enough. So either the player with few games inherited a good ELO from previous seasons, or the ranked player with a lot of games still only has an average ELO around 60. So he hasn't really earned the right to not play with a random ranked noob. This is something that I personally also described a few times, that while ELO hell is always a debatable topic, I think there is this bracket in ELO when you're literally around middle ELO or an average ELO that you're gonna get a lot of qualifiers, and there's a lot more gambling going into your matches because those qualifiers may be good or not good depending on that. And point number 5, regarding stale players, X asked why players who might have had their ELO established and quantized in mid-February would not have an ELO deduction for not playing until mid-March. I checked out the code and the answer is that 3 to 4 weeks is not enough time. Yes, I'm reading the next sentence of this post now. This is not what I said. Okay, his response was pretty epic. He could have stopped with that first sentence, but he didn't, and he hits on 2 things that I want to elaborate on. Number 2, he says, ranked matchmaking uses ELO only for matchmaking, which is exactly what you want in matchmaking system for ranked players. In casual queues, we use some other modifiers to varying degrees to alter the matches made, like player level, parties, etc. And we run simulations to tune these modifiers over time. I think it's a good thing. I think that fact that parties are factored in here as well is fair. In number 3 and number 4, he hints at players potentially believing that they were finding bad matches because a Masters player was playing with a qualifying player or a gold player in your diamond matches and so on. In these cases, the matchmaking was actually accurate, it was just that the qualifying player's ELO wasn't visible at the time, but it was similar to the Masters player. Same with the gold and diamond match. The gold player was rising and his ELO is actually higher than his current rank, whereas the diamond player was established with the same ELO as the gold player. Again, something that we see mostly resolved at the moment, with the matches being less focused, the rank being less focused on those divisions and more focused around the ELO or MMR. This explanation is all to say that in the next release we will now be showing you your actual MMR in those ranked queues, as they did. The match lobby will not show you each player's MMR, but you will see them on the Masters or higher leaderboards, the profile screens, and you'll see your own MMR adjustment at the end of the match lobby. So all things that we actually got. Hopeful that exposing this will give you more insight into your actual ranking, give you a reason to fight up the leaderboards. So that is that part that actually happened, the whole MMR thing. That was a good change. What didn't happen was the removal of time queues from casual modes. Why? Well, the most upvoted comment in the thread was somebody saying that they like timed queues and they feel like the matchmaking is better with it, even though again, we would have a bigger player pool now anyways. And there were a few other remarks like that, which is fair enough, I guess. But the really interesting one is the reply from Titanforge Travis himself, because really shortly after some replies went in, he posted another one. Hi everyone. First off, I want to make sure that you guys know that I take the community's feedback very seriously. We have been watching this Reddit post to gauge your response to this change. It seems that the vast majority of players here on Reddit, again, this thread had 30 upvotes, 33 upvotes, and the highest vote on that thing was 40 upvotes. Reddit has had threads with 2,000 upvotes plus, so vast majority of players here on Reddit is maybe a bit debatable, have really grown to love what the timed queues have to offer. I'm going to be honest with you, that caught me by surprise. I recall frustrations from players when moving to time queues before and I misread the room. In this case, your argument for keeping time queues is strong, with many passionate opinions, and I respect that. we will not be moving away from timed queues for this next release. We are evaluating another avenue to get matches for those players that are selecting something other than all. Thanks everyone for your feedback and posts. I will continue to push transparency as much as possible so that we can work together to make Smite awesome, even if sometimes you may slap my hand and tell me no. And that's what I'm gonna do right now. Titanforge Travis has not really been very present on Reddit anymore, much like Titan Rio. They all disappear after a while after interacting with the community. This is my slapping your hand and saying no. Bad idea. Multiple people actually responded to his reply saying it's kind of weird that you're going by 30 replies on Reddit here and maybe consider doing it for less popular modes and all that kind of stuff. But there's a deeper issue here. There's a bigger problem that goes completely unaddressed. And now let me say this first. I understand that there are places where timed queues are way better. If you are, especially for ranked, but also for casual modes, if you're in a region with a higher player pool, where you know that the queues are gonna pop frequently, there is a reasonable chance that you're going to prefer timed queues just so that you can go somewhere else and come back and know exactly when the queue pops. You don't need to sit in front of your PC. This makes more sense for longer queues, so that's why specifically for ranked, I think this is a very good call, as you might want to do something in between in the ranked queues. Now here's the problem. That is not the case for everyone everywhere. And this post was made in evening times for NA players. So those were the ones responding to that. And of course, if you're playing in one of the most popular regions, now probably the most populated region by far actually, you're gonna get responses from those people that say, why would we need a change here? What they completely neglects is all the regions with lower player bases. That's LATAM, that's Southeast Asia, that's Oceanic, there's quite a few different servers that HiRez has outside of the main region. And for all of those, multi-queue was 100 times, 1,000 times better. Why? Because in those regions you wait for matches much longer, meaning that you will constantly have queue pops, only to then be told that you're going to be placed in the high priority queue for the next round. And that can happen 5 times in a row if no one else is queuing up and you just sit there and wait. And that happens for Arena, that happens for Assault, that happens for any mode of the day. I haven't seen those ones in ages, or the adventure modes even. That happens for anything that's not Joust and Conquest when we're talking about Oceanic servers, for example. And even here, you may have to wait multiple queue pops for Conquest, for casual Conquest that is. So by having the queue constantly pop, you just constantly have to go back to your PC to click accept, then wait 20 seconds just to get the message that you're in high priority for the next queue anyways, go back to your business and then come back later for the same thing again, which is of course not fun. If you had a queue here that just pops once there are enough players, that would be a lot better, because then you would actually click accept once and not have that sound every few minutes just to know that nothing's going to happen off it. But what's even more important is you would actually have variety between different game modes, because you could queue for multiple game modes and there's a chance that you might actually get another mode for once, because right now people just queue Joust for the most part because they know that's the place where you can actually get a match. And multi-queue, back when it was still a thing, resolved all of these issues. This wasn't a problem with multi-queue around, because people would actually be able to play all these modes, and therefore the servers in themselves also had much healthier populations. More people came over because they knew more people were playing, were queuing up in the first place, were queuing up for other modes as well, which was more interesting for them. So they all came together and these servers were actually healthy. And this entire opportunity basically got thrown away because of a Reddit post that was posted at a time where most of those players wouldn't even see it. There have been plenty of requests to return multi-queue since, for those regions at least. And I don't know if it's a bit harder to implement. I'm sure it's not the easiest thing to do, but I'm pretty sure it should be possible that if you switch to another region in the settings, that then the queue version could change and adapt accordingly. It's probably some extra work, of course, but it should at least make 2, if not 3 regions a lot more interesting and a lot more viable to play on for a lot of players that even now with crossplay struggle because they're kind of limited in the modes they want to play, and that drives people off the game. So yeah, long story short, I really hope that HiRez reconsiders this. I think it was one of the biggest mistakes they made when it comes to regions that are not NA and EU, and I hope that we see a change to that in the future. And with that, thank you guys for watching. If you're new to the channel, feel free to click the sub button and maybe the bell. It really helps me out. And other than that, see you for the next one tomorrow. DukeSloth, out.